Welcome to the Ascension Alchemists podcast. This is your host, Michael Abramson, and this is my solo episode, which I am so excited to speak to all of you today. So welcome. Thank you all for being here today. We're so grateful to each and every one of you that take the time to really listen to what myself, Honey, and our joint episodes bring forth, because I really feel what we share is a great way we can connect, great way we can resonate with so much that's happening right now. And as many of us are here in this northern hemisphere, we're literally in the last week of winter heading into the spring equinox, where my wife and the beautiful Persians celebrate their new year. And what I really appreciate about this time of year is we're cleaning out the old and letting in the new. And that's where I really want to dive into today's episode, because I feel many of us are going through some phenomenal, radical shifts within our life. And recently, this past couple weeks, I've noticed myself just going through lots of changes. Physically, I've known increased levels of head pressure. Mentally and emotionally, sometimes I feel like I'm in this void where I'm somewhat moving out of my old self and into this new identity of my greater self, but sometimes caught in between, kind of like that caterpillar that's in the cocoon and one wing's kind of caught in that jelly substance and the other leg's kind of coming out, but it feels kind of sticky and almost like in a stuck situation, because I notice just what I've been experiencing and seeing is this transformation, yet it almost feels like it's stuck, but I'm kind of caught in my past beliefs, but I'm moving forward in the excitement of who I want to be. But sometimes my brain gets heavy with all that's happening in the outer world, that it really requires this stillness of looking at what's happening. So I'd like to ask each and every one of you that are listening, what have you been experiencing? What have you been noticing about yourself in this time? Because what I've seen is really when this time of year comes, it's like as we clean out our closets, as we clean out the old debris in the garden, as we make room for the new, it seems like this old version somehow is still sticking around until we have to physically remove it and let it go. And I've noticed about myself, and I've said this with many clients that I work with, is how interesting it is when we're ready to release those old patterns, those old programs and beliefs. Sometimes they are at their loudest. That's what I tell when I work with the men, which literally 1 week from tomorrow, I'm so excited to once again present my Conscious of All of Men monthly online Zoom circle. And I invite these men because I feel as we come together, we're literally sharing the wisdom, the thoughts, the nature of what it is to become the greatest version of ourselves. And so what I've seen in this time period, and maybe you guys can check in with yourself, is this older version, these older patterns, sometimes this comfort zone is still around, and we literally have to put into action how we're going to release and let it go. Because sometimes it's sticking around because it's attached to our egoic mind, or our old patterns, which once worked in the past, are no longer working. So have you ever noticed yourself trying to move forward, but there's this weight pulling you back because you can't move through the door holding this old level of baggage? And so this past week, I've really seen myself move into, let's just say, old patterns and beliefs that I've kind of gotten upset. I've noticed levels of anger or stress or worry and anxiety that I haven't felt in a while, but have actually come up for me to see. Now, what happens if all of that is actually a gift and an opportunity to come up? Because as I was sharing with a client yesterday, what happens if we're no longer fighting with the past? or trying to break it, destroy it, but now surrender to it and accept it so that we create less resistance of it and we move beyond it. And I know that concept can be very challenging at first, because when we say surrender, sometimes that beautiful mind likes to think, oh, we're giving power to it. We're not winning, we're losing the battle. But when I say surrender to it, just bringing awareness to it. Because what I've learned over this past year, especially in these winter months where we're moving to spring, is really shining this higher light of awareness and consciousness on these old aspects, these old beliefs, these old conditions that are here now to be fully dissolved, but now dissolved in a new way, dissolved in forgiveness, dissolved in gratitude, dissolved in honoring it from a whole new perspective. Because I know many of us, we've have old wounds, whether it's abandonment, rejection, betrayal, all of the not good enoughs. They somehow want to pop up in those moments where we're not ready for them. They sometimes want to all of a sudden kind of rise in this area, and before we know it, it's like, why is this coming to me? I thought once again I released this. Yet here we are, this last week of winter, as we move into the spring. And I find that's when it gets really loud, because when we hit this spring equinox, this is the day where we have an equal amount of light, an equal amount of dark. So we actually give a blessing to both aspects. And then we start rising into each day becoming lighter and lighter to the summer solstice. So when you hear this today, what patterns, what beliefs, what programs have you noticed that have come up that you're ready just to let go? That you're no longer here to hold them, because I really feel many of us are moving into this greater version of ourselves, this new identity that's here to really show ourselves in this world what we came here to do. And I feel it's absolutely necessary to let go of some of these old patterns so that we can truly embody what we really are. And many times it seems very overwhelming. It seems very challenging. But you know what I've done this past year that has really helped me? I've gone within and I've really realized that I am not here to do this alone. I'm here to do this with the divine source within me, that infinite intelligence, that God Almighty presence that's here. Because I know sometimes this human mind, when I believe I'm doing it by myself, it feels so overwhelming. Even at times I feel quite anxious. Yet when I remember that there is a divine infinite intelligence within me, that not only am I created from, that is a living expression from with me, but it's also here to help me move into the areas that I dream, that I aspire to be. Imagine now, as we let go of these aspects of us in these last days of winter for those living in the Northern Hemisphere. And now we enter spring. And now we're looking to plant the seeds within us. What would happen if we could now look within and say, I now give myself the permission to really anchor in and embody what I want with the help and assistance of divine source, God Almighty within me. So that these old beliefs, these old patterns do not have to take over us in our vulnerable moments, because at any moment we can say, with divine source within me, anything and everything is possible. With divine source, I am here to show that I am able, I can do it, I am ready, and nothing can stop me, because divine source, God Almighty, is here to assist me. And that is actually one of the best ways to rewrite our old limited beliefs, by stating a new empowered belief. And you know what I've really recognized these past 9 months especially? the more I am actually connecting within my divine source within, the more I'm establishing this deeper relationship and inviting this, I'm starting to see my relationship with everything and everyone around me grow and expand to a level I never would have imagined. Just ask honey. As I've started to become more disciplined within myself, of letting go of energy leakages, of overextending, or distracting with, let's just say, too much time with either social media or spending time with energies that no longer support who I am. I've noticed I've become more refined into the divine being that wants to come through me. In maintaining commitment to myself, responsibility to myself, and really going within to see how I can be the fullest and greatest version of myself, I've really recognized that we, me, you, all of us have this incredible, magnificent self that wants to evolve. Yet as it evolves, like anything else, we have to release these layers, like the leaves that fall, like the snail or snake that releases its shell. These older versions have to go into these newer, grander versions that are here because that's what we signed up for. Many of us have incredible, phenomenal, great paths before us, but we no longer can carry those old versions of ourselves. Sometimes that version where our central nervous system was so dysregulated that we were operating under fight or flight, survival mode, victim mode. But now we're recognizing the more we refine with the divine, we're allowing ourselves to then live in more of a state of peace, joy, and happiness. Letting go of that hustle, bustle, I have to work so hard to earn money, when really, what happens if I rest more, open myself up for the greater infinite abundance that I am? I don't have to sacrifice the time of my family or sacrifice the time to so much work just by aligning and embodying our true God-given nature. Because that's where I feel like we're going, and that's where I feel this spring equinox. Even several weeks ago, I was speaking to my mother. And for many of you that are into the astrology, which I listen to, but I go deep within and listen to my heart. But my mom was saying how this is the first time in 26,000 years that Saturn is conjuncting with Neptune. And it is being shown that everything within the invisible realm, everything that is here, that is literally coming up, that we have manifest within ourselves, is now actually arising to our physical, beautiful reality. Imagine all of that inner work, all of those visions of seeing yourself in your greatest version, of putting in that time and effort of meditating, connecting within yourself, whether it's writing, reading, journaling, and allowing yourself to evolve to that vision you've always seen, is now coming into full fruition. Because that's where our frequency and that's where our planet's going. Could you imagine right now, as we move to the spring equinox, all of what you've been harnessing within you is now going to be brought without you, so within as without. And what I recognize is when that spring equinox happens in the northern culture, or just the equinox happens, the northern or southern hemisphere, there is actually a huge shift. And that shift starts to move energy through us. And what I've seen as a healing practitioner, teacher, speaker, coach, mentor, the more space we have when we clear and release these old parts of our shadow in this wintertime, the more space we have to grow and expand in that infinite source that wants to bloom and blossom in the spring. Yet at the same time, when there is still unresolved pain, or there is blockages, or we're living lifestyles that we haven't spent the time to do our inner work and inner healing, where God doesn't give the opportunity to move through because there's so much contraction, then these times can be a little more challenging. I know that, for example, when I'm putting so much time into work and I'm not giving enough time to self-care, my body feels contracted. Now imagine as we move into this incredible equinox where there is a huge influx of energy that wants to go through us and spring forward in what we're here to expand, grow, and bloom. Yet if we have a lot of contraction, density, hurt, and pain within us that's unresolved, it's going to shake that, which is still perfect timing because it's going to start to unearth those to eventually release. That is why I ask each of you, when looking into the spring equinox, what areas can we start to cleanse and clear? What old beliefs? Can I start to look at, what parts of my life have I procrastinated or held myself back? Where can I open myself up greater within my heart or open myself greater in my beliefs? Where can I look at limited beliefs that have held me back, of not wanting to be seen, or the fear of judgment, or the fear of failing or doing something wrong? Where can we look at some of these areas that we can evolve? Because what I'll tell you now is, the more we let go, the more we release, the more we allow this God-given light to expand, to then seed what we're here to do. And that would be the next question I would ask. As we move into this spring equinox, what do you want to seed? What do you want to plant right now? Do yourself, would I like to seed this vision of financial freedom, of all of my debts and credits being cleared? Do I want to seed this version of me that cannot be affected of what's on the outside, whether it's wars, whether it's social media, separation, division? Can I just now seed that I will no longer personalize, judge what's happening outside of me, because the true compass, my GPS, my God-powered service is within me. And the more I focus within that, I can let go of what's happening outside of me, because the truth is really what's happening within. Can I seed that truth? What other areas can we seed within us? What aspirations, what dreams? This is the spring that I know I'm finally going to get that project unearthed. I'm finally going to present one area of my life that I've been dreaming my whole life. Even if it's an idea, even if it's an intention. The key is, when we seed it, we can now start to water it and bring light to it by our positive thoughts, emotions, and feelings. And that's one area that I feel many of us could master, and I would like to invite all of you that Honey and I have brought into is our thoughts, emotions, and feelings of a course that we've created in mastering them, because many of us have never been taught how to master these areas. And when we don't, sometimes we're caught a victim of what's happening outside of us versus inside of us. So I'll post that link, because that has been game-changing. You can even ask Honey. She has seen me move through these, because, when we become our best friend of our mind, it doesn't have to be our worst enemy. And we've gone through some serious trials and tribulations, all of us, that when we start to anchor in the tools and the exercises, how to bring our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, and our feeling into alignment, and then we embody our highest and greatest version, then we start to move and operate in a way we've never done. We start to bring greater levels of joy, happiness, peace, prosperity, and abundance, which is our natural state, because now we're living in a regulated nervous system, which is our baseline. So for those that are interested in these courses, I can't tell you how much they are a game changer. Because for me, it's brought this greater awareness of like, wow, when did I ever go through school where we would actually look at the relationship of our thoughts and where they connected to our beliefs and where these limited beliefs came from in that story that we were already born into, and usually from our family? Or let's just say areas that we had trauma or fears that weren't fully dissolved. And then when these thoughts and beliefs come, what emotions start to bloom out of them? So all these areas have been detailed in a beautiful process Rahai and I have looked at in regulating our central nervous system and what steps we can do. Looking at how we can see and choose what we want to move through in our day-to-day actions by clearing limited beliefs. Looking how we can bring emotional mastery so that the emotions are not driving our vessel. We're actually in more control and alignment. These are all areas that we are so passionate about, as you can hear from me, that we want to share because we're not only living it, but we're embodying it. And that's what I feel is really what you're going to start hearing, not only from our association, but what this world and time is about. Because authenticity and transparency of who we are is going to get more clear. And I've recognized the more we start embodying what we want to create, what we want to do, that starts to allow us to move even faster into what is going to be brought in our life. And if any of you have looked outside and any of you have looked at this world, it's moving faster because vibration is elevating. Consciousness is expanding. And so it's okay to move at any rate and any level that we choose. Yet as we elevate our consciousness and frequency, it's also going to bring a greater acceleration to us, within us, and around us. That's why it's so important to really look within and around us of what it is that we truly want and how we want to not only embody it, but align to it. And know better during this spring equinox, because as we know, when this fertile time comes and we seed and plant the areas that we want to grow and expand upon, then it's only a matter of time before it blossoms into the fire of summer. And right now, I feel like it's our greatest mastery to see how we can stay so focused on what we want to create versus looking outside of ourselves and watching a world that is almost self-destructing in the lack of creation, because it seems like there is more of a void, or let's just say division or distraction or a depression of energy that keeps us, let's just say, at a dimmer level of light. But no longer, because this equinox is going to shine this light. It's going to shine light on the shadows. And in this last week of winter, it's going to bring things up that we may not want to see. But you know what I learned the past 2 days? The more I was meeting these dense areas that were coming through me, I was meeting it in a whole new relationship by respecting it, honoring it, and most importantly, thanking it. I would thank the areas of anxiety, worry, and stress that would come up, because no longer I would resist, because that would persist. I would thank it in surrendering and once again saying, thank you for showing up. Now you're teaching me how to bring more peace, more understanding, and more awareness of what's underneath it. But even greater, I started to realize why these areas, these old versions, these old beliefs were coming up. It's because I truly haven't let them go. You know, as a man, and I work with a lot of men and a lot of women as well, so this is for both and all genders. Isn't it interesting in this human experience how challenging it is to let go? It's almost like this beautiful ego wants to hold on to its identity, wants to hold on to its personality, wants to make everything just comfortable and not create change. Yet change is a constant motion of energy. And it's almost like this ego wants to hold on for dear life just to keep our identity and keep things the way they are, yet every single day. It's like this wonderful Alan Watts quote that I heard yesterday is, I can choose to be different than who I was 5 minutes ago. And that's what's happening every day. But our culture somehow keeps us in this routine base where we're constantly judged by who and what we are. And all that is self-destructing right now because we're moving into a greater golden age. What happens if we have to start letting go of the areas that we haven't released? And we know those. These are the ones that are the most challenging. Some of the patterns, some of the habits, some of the things that just seem so difficult because somehow we've been holding on. Maybe for security, maybe for identity. This ego doesn't want to let go because even the pain body that really contributes to the ego protects it because it holds identity to it. And if we lose our identity, then what? Or we don't let go because it doesn't feel safe. We don't feel secure. Yet what happens if we start to now maneuver and opening up the greatest space within us by truly learning how to let go? And what I've seen within myself and with those that I mentor, and for those that are ever interested in the 12-week programs, 6-week programs that I do, it is a phenomenal one-on-one program that I dive deep into limited beliefs, into creating a program that allows your dreams, your goals, your visions to be brought forth in our highest and greatest version, especially for those that are in between stage of not knowing what they want to do, but they know they're here of greater purpose. Because what I know in these programs that I've been not only personally experiencing but helping is letting go has been one of the greatest factors to open up our greatest potential of who we are, that God source. Letting go has given the opportunity to open up a space for us that some of our greatest abilities, manifestations, desires, and dreams actually need to have that opening for us to move through. And what I've been working with, especially these past several months, is choosing one of the most powerful, incredible ways to let go. And that is forgiveness, where many of us weren't taught the depth of it, and many of us avoid it because it doesn't feel good. We've all heard of that phrase, well, I will forgive, but I won't forget. That's not actually the trueness of what it is. Because if we're not releasing it fully, we're still holding on to these old areas. As we move into the spring equinox, we're letting go of the shadows of the winter. We're letting go of what no longer serves us. We're cleaning. If you look at our place, every time before spring equinox, Honey and I are looking at what we can let go. Let's let go of more clothes. Let's let go of more possessions. Let's release it because we can't hold on to it. We can't hold on to anything. It all has to move through us. But if we're trying to hold on for dear life, we're not actually moving forward. Yet, when we go deeper, some of these pains and hurts, we don't let go because somewhere we haven't forgiven them. And what happens if we start to realize that when we don't apply this gift, this art of forgiveness, we're still shackled to that old pain, that old hurt, that shame, that guilt, that's still within our muscle memory, within our body, and somewhere it's been buried. And as much as we want to look at the person or the experience of like, well, they have to tell me I'm sorry, they have to step forward. What happens if we step back and realize it may not be so much about the person or experience or event, but more about what we're releasing of the hurt and pain because that's still shackled to us? Wouldn't we find even a greater importance to see if I forgive, I start to not only let go of that, I free myself and liberate of what's been within me this whole time. So imagine as we move into these days right before the equinox, what could we release and let go through forgiveness? Where are areas in your life that are so charged that we could go deeper and say, I'm still holding on to this. And that does not create the health and the well-being, because if we're holding on to it, we're not expanding and growing. We're still attached to something old that is here to be fully dissolved. And then when we go deeper, and this is the one that really takes the top of the cake, the cherry on top, is really looking at self-forgiveness. It's one thing to learn how to forgive, but now imagine for the eternal growth, the expansion, ready to go into the spring equinox, full force into effect, and having that space open for yourself to blossom to the greatest version of yourself. What versions of yourself can you let go by forgiving you? Forgiving that part of yourself of being too critical, too harsh, too judgmental. What part of yourself can you forgive of what we may have called the mistakes in our life, which may have been placed there so we can grow and evolve? What areas are we doing that sometimes we have impacted others and we haven't quite fully forgiven ourselves or that impact, and we're still holding that in resentment that sometimes we project on others, but it's really within ourselves? These are all areas and all practices that can be brought forward. Letting go and forgiving and really clearing what I say our greatest path, so that what we've been brought here to do now moves in ease and grace. Because what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is we're moving into a higher version of ourselves, which means a new identity. And that new identity still has the reflection of all of the great things that we've done. But we're moving even higher so that we can't hold that identity. We can't live from that identity. And most important, we can't be attached to that identity. It's like, imagine going through school and you're into the 6th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, but you're still living from that same 6th grade mentality when you're already in college. Or what happens when you become the greatest version of yourself, yet somewhere we're still holding on to something from the past because we won't let it go? Then we can't even move into that greater aspect because we're always evolving, always expanding. So yes, that greatest version is already here. It's already within us. But to let it bloom means letting go of the limited version of ourselves. Letting go of those parts that sometimes we hold ourselves back because maybe we're partially in. One foot in the door, one foot out the door. I know that myself. Is it safe enough for me to fully jump in? Nope. I think I'll just put a pinky in. Maybe I'll put 2 fingers in. Maybe I'll put a whole hand in. But what happens now? We jump fully in and we engage. And we put all of ourselves in because we let go of that fear of if it's safe enough. Will it be secure enough? Will I have enough? All of these old programs, because at the end of the day, you were always enough, you are enough, and you will always be enough because you are plenty enough. And once we realize that, then we start to recognize that we have so much more within us that's here to fully spring forward. We have such an immaculate, powerful, divine energy, God Almighty, that is ready for us to spring into what we're here to do. Yet, we have to clear the gardens, we have to clear the old leaves, we have to clear the parts of us that are literally dead, because they no longer are here to survive, because we're moving into a whole new air. And that air does not live upon fear. It does not live upon limitation. It does not live in lack and scarcity. Those are programs and beliefs that were given to us for us to not only transform, but to master and be thankful so that we can help others recognize that infinite abundance and prosperity is our divine nature. Now, it's one thing to write these things down, which are great. One element that I would say that if you want to release more, to write them down on a piece of paper, to create a sacred ceremony, whether you want to burn it in a safe place, or bury it in a beautiful garden, or put it out into the water, or throw it off a cliff and cut it off. Those are great ways to release it. But more than the pen to the paper is also taking action. And that's what I've learned. When we put action into what we want to create, we're embodying that new version. And I know sometimes putting action sometimes feels a little scary, or sometimes if we're doing something the first time, yet we've done it our whole life. And isn't it funny? Sometimes the fear seems much greater than what it was. And then we actually do it and the fear no longer is there. It's like, wow, it looked much worse than I thought it was. And that's usually the case. But now it becomes, what can I now do to step in that greater version? That greater version can be anything. It could be where you are in this moment of your life and you're like, I'm ready to be in a state where I'm living in a greater level of joy, in a most prosperous state of living, where I'm prosperous in joy, prosperous in happiness, prosperous in health, prosperous in wealth. And I want to live in a place where ease and grace can now become my natural way, because that's how the body was designed. And when we really look at homeostasis and living in a state of harmony, it is in peace and calmness. So for today, a couple days before the equinox, here we are, getting ready to dive in to what I see one of the most powerful times of the world. What can we do to let go and to rise into a new aspect of ourselves, seed it, and then now water it so we can become that greatest, most magnificent, phenomenal being that we already are? Because this is what I do with private clients. A week from tomorrow, once again, I'm bringing the men together to have a wonderful Zoom session at 8 p.m. It's my form of giving and tithing to bring this free circle together with beautiful leaders, great men, great healers, great people throughout this country and world, and then get to share it in wisdom. And that's what I find this podcast is all about, is shared experiences, shared wisdom in ways that we can really help assist each other, love each other, and really move through this world in a level we can find greater levels of peace, harmony, and happiness. And what I've learned personally is when I'm embodying that source nature first thing in the morning, and I'm aligning it through my thoughts, through my feelings, through my emotions, life becomes so joyful and happy. And we all deserve that. That is our birthright. That is our freedom. And that is what we really appreciate sharing with all of you, because we know each and every one of you have that ready to lift off, ready to go within and connect to that source within you and allow that to fill every aspect of who you are, so that you now become what we all know, that greatest version that is here to rise. And that is what I feel that we're doing. The key is not to get caught in the current reality and the circumstances, and to keep seeing it, keep envisioning it, and keep holding that vision of where you want to go, and bring again that joy and happiness that's already happening. And the more we embody that and feel that from that desired outcome, then we're going to see some of the most phenomenal, amazing, what we may say miracles, but manifestations that are going to be happening like this. And I share this because I know not only myself, honey, but there are great leaders coming forward. We know that this is our time to rise. This is our time to spring forward. And this is our time to lead in a whole new level from the heart, in our highest love, from our greatest power, our God Almighty soul. And that's where I'm here to share from my heart to yours, in thanking each and every one of you for what you're doing, what you're seeding, and what you're bringing into this spring equinox, because it's going to be a powerful one. And I hope that today, that there could be some areas that we could revisit and look at even in our personal time to release, let go, limited beliefs, areas that can strengthen my central nervous system, applying forgiveness, but most important, opening up space for God Almighty to bring forth the gifts that are already within you. Because what happens if you are a gift? And what happens if this gift turns on by elevating your frequency and vibration, by connecting with this divine source each and every day, by exuding greater levels of happiness, joy, and peace, even if the world looks upside down? Because all we have to do is smile and turn that frown upside down into what we're here, into that joy and happiness. It's that inner smile from the heart, from your love, and most important, from that God Almighty soul that is shining in each and every moment when we give attention and when we give that love to what we are and who we are. So once again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time. I will drop the link below for our self-mastery courses that I cannot tell you how much it's changed my life and changed my relationship with honey and all that I'm creating. And as well, I invite all of you men, for those women that are listening that would like to invite their brothers, their cousins, their fathers, their sons. It's an empowering circle with great men around the country. It will be 1 week from Thursday, February 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I look forward to once again bringing forth what I see are the greater changes that are happening not only from within us, but that are happening all around us. For that's what this podcast is about, is sharing it, ascending it, and really bringing what we feel, this golden age together, and embodying and aligning to God Almighty. So once again, thank you for joining and sending you all of our love and many blessings.